would stop seeing things the way they are and see things the way you want them to be, and then if you would have the ability to tell people the way things are in the future, not the way they are presently, those things that you say you want and you speak of will come. That's the law.
What do Dee mean by chiropractic is meant to connect man the physical with man the spiritual?
Sure, the connection is God. To your physical body with your spiritual body, which is God. Or whatever you want to call it. But there is a spirit of life in you that has to be reconnected to the physical entity that you walk around with. So the adjustment connects the two. The purpose of the adjustment is solely to allow a greater expression of innate through matter, period, or life, as the case may be, being synonymous terms. So if we make an adjustment on a person, the idea is that there is a connection, a definite connection of, and a greater expression of life through matter. And if we stop and think about it, life is motion. The chiropractic term is motion. When you have a subluxation, which is an interference to the expression of life over the nerve system, beneath the point of subluxation is paralysis, which simply means a lack of motion or lack of life. So the reality is then that this person is not expressing maximum life. And by correcting the subluxation, which allows now a greater expression of life or innate through matter, then that tissue cell begins to vibrate at a higher rate. And when it reaches its level of vibration, then it functions normally. It's all simple. Everybody makes it complex. What is your life other than spirit? Is it a physical thing? Would you say your life is a physical thing? You would say that? Well, you were wrong. It isn't a physical thing. Your life is not a physical thing. Your life is spiritual. It is a spirit, is it not? I mean, you ever see life? You ever drink life or pick up life or eat life? No, it's there. It's expressing itself, but it expresses itself through matter. Now, if you remove the life from a physical body, in an instant, that body doesn't work anymore, does it? Because it doesn't have what? Life. Life is the spirit that causes the body to work. When you make an adjustment, you unite the two because areas in the body are not expressing life as it should, so therefore that part of the body doesn't work, or it's dysfunctional. So when we make an adjustment, there's an expression of life through matter over the nerve system to the level of the tissue cell. And now we have motion and we have life again.
What is the chiropractic adjustment with that something extra?
Well, BJ coined that. You know, he gave the adjustment with the extra something. The extra something is the realization that, first of all, you have to be at the right place at the right time in the right direction. And if done correctly, then that particular adjustment holds. And that's when BJ made the statement that he was adjusting people, namely just once. Why? Because the adjustment was holding. Why wasn't it holding for other people? Well, because perhaps they weren't making the proper adjustment. That's the first thing. The second thing is the idea that there is something within that individual that is expressing itself where it wasn't expressing before. And if we come to the conclusion that if we can humble ourselves, God does the healing. So that extra something is the expression of God through man, period. If my consciousness isn't to the point where I know that I'm doing something that's viable and worthwhile, it may or may not work. On the contrary, if I have a great deal of certainty in that, it's going to work most of the time. So it's a big thing going on between the ears. Success is the same thing. You're only successful if your consciousness is success. If your consciousness is failure, then you're going to fail. So it's where you are in your relationship and your consciousness of being who you are and what you are. Are you do you consider yourself the greatest chiropractor on planet Earth? And you might say, well, that's pretty egotistical. So what? It's your consciousness. And you do better than a guy who thinks he's not, or has a lot of fear or doubt or disbelief. You know, the big thing is, in the Bible it says this. It says, look to the unseen. How can you look to the unseen? If you can't see it, how can you look to it? Well, you see it in your own mind, you see. So if you came in with a problem, whatever it is, be it cancer, it really doesn't make any difference. And I see you with cancer, and I see it being cancer, it's not very much if I can help you. But if I can see you the way I would like you to be, which is completely clean, then there's a possibility I could help you. I can't help you, but you can help yourself. Yes? You know, we had a fellow come in who had a sarcoma in his deltoid muscle. And he had already had it operated on once, and it was like indented where they removed the material. But he came back. And so he asked me if I could help him. And my stock answer was always this: I can move the bone, God can do the healing. That's it, that's all I got. So he said, well, I want you to help me if you can. And I said, okay. So I adjusted him, and he said, well, I know one thing. You can move the bone. He was sure of that. So then he had to expect, in my thoughts, he had to expect that God was going to heal him. And it came out like a pimple, a little pimple, and then it got bigger, and it looked like a boil, and it opened up. There's a hole there, and the hole was about the size of a silver dollar, and you could actually see in there. And then it came out and like a, I don't know if you ever took the cover off of a golf ball, and it was all like rubber bands wrapped around. That's the way that thing looked, and it was just hanging there. So I sent him up to the hospital. They snipped it because there was just a little string there. Ran a biopsy. It was all cancerous, and this was all cleared up. They put a pie graft on top, and he was fine. That happened with women's breasts as well. How come I was able to do that? Am I any different than anybody else? No. Why are those things happening? Because I didn't think, I never recognized disease. My consciousness says it's not there. You're whole. So that's what I saw, and that's apparently what they saw. And they healed up. I had a lady come in who had broken her leg. Some of this stuff sounds a little goofy to the majority of people, but I'm telling you the way it is. And she came in with a cast on her leg, and I touched her cast, and she heard it, and I heard it. A click. And I said, your leg, go get that thing Xrayed. There's no break there. She went to the hospital, excuse me, and they X-rayed it, and there was nothing there. I had a dog the same way. I had a dog where they put a pin in, it was nothing there. I mean, it was absolutely void of bone. I adjusted her, and we took her to get X-rayed, and it was all filled in. You could say, well, that sounds, goofy, because that sounds miraculous, right? Well, I expect miracles. It's all in your head. You agree with that? The world will agree with that for the most part. It is your consciousness. How come we have poor people and rich people? Because they had, what, luck? Or was it their consciousness? Yeah, I have my son, who's passed on, bless his heart, but he said he was going to be a millionaire by the time he was, I think he said 40. And he was. But it took him that long to make that. He had his very best friend, and I want to say this too, Chris saw us in our poverty years. My first 8 years I failed. and we had some hard times financially. He saw that and he lived that, so he had some of that in his mind. His best friend, from the time they were about 3 or 4 years old, his mother and dad were millionaires. Their parents were millionaires. One of them had a big furniture factory, another had a big foundry, and he thought everybody was a millionaire. He didn't know that. I mean, he never lived in poverty, never saw anybody that wasn't wealthy, and everybody, all their friends were wealthy. So what was his consciousness versus Chris's? His consciousness was, shoot, everybody's a millionaire. What's the big deal? So at Scott, at the same age, I think it was 40, he sold his computer business for $40 million, and they hired him back as a consultant for $1 million, taxes paid. It's different in consciousness, right? So how does chiropractic work? How do you think? If I don't think I can help you, do you think you're going to respond? No, you can't. I remember days when I was younger and cranking on people like trying to get oil out of the ground somewhere, and they wouldn't respond. I'd say, well, I can't help you. And as soon as I say that, there just was no chance of them being helped, But if I never thought that, and after I found out who I was, I didn't think that, and those kinds of things didn't happen. They clear up.
What do you mean by once you found out who you were?
I didn't always know who I was. I thought I was poor. I thought I was a failure. I thought I was just not a real viable person to be real. All I thought about was fear, and we never had any money. We never had any practice. 8 years, I only ever saw about 17 visits a day, which is pretty sad. But I didn't know who I was. I had no idea that I was who I am. I had no idea what chiropractic was either. I went to National, which they don't teach chiropractic. And as a matter of fact, they told me to prepare to starve for 4 years. Well, I've been an overachiever in my life, so I went for 8 years, and for sure. But when we came here, found out what chiropractic was, and I bought it completely because it was really what I had thought, even though I didn't express it. And I just flew with it, and and it didn't take me forever. I came here in May, and in July, I think it was, or June or July, we came back because we had them every 2 months in those days, and I was already doing 350 a week, from 17 a day to 350 a week, and then it just kept going up, to where we finally hit 2,000 a week, steady, pretty steady, which is a great thing, I think.
And how did you train to stay, I call it staying clear or connected? What does it require?
For me? Well, realizing I was a street fighter and a semi-alcoholic, it took a bit of discipline in my life. So I meditated regularly, anywhere from 10 minutes to sometimes 3 or 4 hours. Real meditation, beautiful and stuff. I fasted up to 28 days. I was going for 40, but a negative guy sucked all the energy out of me, and I had to give it up. So, but I made it 28 days. Then we fasted every 1 day a week, every week. Every week was 1 day out of that week was a fast day. And then I started running, and I just did everything that I could do to discipline myself. I stopped eating meat. I stopped alcohol. I was smoking 3 packs of cigarettes. I just stopped immediately, and just took control of my life rather than letting all those things control me. So that's when I realized who I was, You know, I realized that I was somebody more than a failure, more than all those things. That I was actually in control of my own life, not letting those things control me. And fasting would do that. When I would fast, I would get to the point where I could almost control everything and anything that was going on in my days. And so I would say, well, I'm going to do this today and that today, and I'm going to accomplish this today, and it would happen. Because I was in control. See, far too many times we let other things control us, especially bad habits. So that's the answer.
And how about on the service trips? Like I've heard you did group meetings when you needed people to come together and hold a vision, or breaths. Can you describe some of those things?
Well, we just came. First of all, we would tell people what we were doing. You know, how chiropractic works. In Spanish. I didn't do it. My friends of mine did it. But then we would, every morning before we went out, we'd connect and we would pray that what we would achieve, to send us the people and for us to have a very successful day. And for the most part, that's what happened. So yeah, we prepared. It's like, you know, I work with people, and the idea that I try to get them to understand is that you need to prepare yourself before you go into practice. If you're going to go in and take care of 2 people or 200 or 2,000 people, prepare yourself for that. You know, so you do meditation and you do visualization, seeing what it is that you're going to achieve, and then you write down your day so that you're commanding your day, and that's it. So now you're prepared to go in there and take care of your folks. And we also suggest that they put a button off your shirt and glue it on the door panel, so that every time you go in the office you press that button. It's called the love button. And then when you press it, then all your troubles you leave out here, and everything in your office, it's like walking through glue or through molasses, because the love vibrations are there. You can really feel it if you want to. So preparation, just like anything else. If you're going to be a golfer, I mean, you had to prepare to do this. You had to set all this up. And if you didn't set it up, you wouldn't be doing it. It's just like going in. If you're going to have a beautiful day, you had to prepare. If you're a golfer, you'd have to prepare you practice.
How do you open up to that love?
Well, it's there. Love is inside of everybody. You just have to let it out. It's a very beautiful thing. You know, love is it's something that I think is capable of changing countries, and people make up countries. So by changing the people, you change the country. And it's a very, very powerful thing that everybody has in them, but they don't always release it. And if you're capable of releasing it, then you achieve a whole lot more than otherwise. It's a very beautiful emotion.
So when you said you figured out who you were, did you find out you were love?
I don't know. I think when I found out who I was, I realized that I had a lot of abilities and a lot of things that I didn't think that I had. And the big thing was certainty. You know, that what I was going to do, I was certain I was going to do it. And yeah, I think, I see. Think of the thing. I used to. I hate to tell you this, but I was a street fighter. I carried a gun and I did all that stuff, and I didn't really like people, you know, and just certain people. I only allowed myself to like certain people, but then I realized, man, I'm not that at all. I'm here to serve God. That's the reason I'm here, to serve God. And how can I better serve God than by serving man? What can I serve you? Hot dogs, hamburgers, Chiropractic, my choice. But I could serve you hot dogs and hamburgers in the same manner. And so when I realized that I was really a servant, then that's when I realized who I was.
What does it mean to live innately guided?
To let innate, remember I said that innate is your personal God, right? And I am in agreement with that. That's what BJ said. And so if I'm innately guided, then I'm guided by the internal mechanism or that personal God. Tells me where to go, what to do, how to do it. Should I do it? Should I not do it? So the more that I allow that to guide me, the more correct I am. The more I educatedly make decisions based on other people's opinions or books, or I don't do as well. So that's the answer.
Have you learned how to use educated?
Yeah, sure. We all do. That's why we go to school. But do I let educated always dominate my next move? No, I don't. No. See, the thing, I get an idea just like you do. I get an idea from God, right? Now that goes. My educated mind has to make a decision: do I do it or don't I do it? Is it going to be right or wrong? And then if I decide to do it, innate picks it up and begins to build it for me. See, so innate is really a fabricator in my life. That's what that builds things for me if I give it there and then let it go and let things happen. Then it works most of the time.
What is the big idea?
Well, the big idea is the realization that the principle of life is God. What is the big idea? You know, it used to be when I was a kid, I'd throw stones through the people's windows and the police would get me. They'd say, "What's the big idea?" That's not exactly it. But the big idea is the idea that life is a principle or a law that we are living by, and it's in us and it runs us. And then we come to the realization that we depend on that. If I can depend on the internal mechanisms of me being life or spirit or innate or personal God, any term you want to hang on it, then I understand that is the big idea. What is a supreme being? What's higher or greater than God? Nothing. So if I get that idea and realize that I'm to serve that, and hopefully to be led by that, if I allow it, then I'm gonna be better than the average bear.
Is that the idea of lasting purpose too?
No, lasting purpose is to have a purpose in life to serve. Service is your purpose, to give. You know, you're supposed to give. I'm supposed to give. That's part of our being here, is giving. And the more we give, the more we what? The more we get, because of the law. That's the law of exchange. And if you look at God and you look at the realization that God is the source of everything, then we're looking from the producer to the product, and then our deal is to give as much as we can give, not just monetarily, but in service to people and loving people. What is greater than picking up a baby or holding a little puppy? I mean, what do you actually feel? You know, you can almost, I don't know. It's a very powerful thing to experience that. Well, supposing you can have that all the time with everybody. You're not going to cuddle and coo with everybody, but you can really feel love. I mean, it's like the love I have for my mother. I can have that for everybody, because every woman that comes in the office is my mother. And I can have that with everybody, if I want to. If I don't want to, I don't. But it's there. And all these things that we really look for are within us. We just have to let them out. All the love is there, all the joy is there, all the peace is there, all the magnificent fruits of the Spirit are there. You just have to let them out. You can tuck them away and never and live in a state of anger and hate and greed and all those things. If you choose, you can do that. But that's not what life is all about. So a lasting purpose is having a purpose in life, which is to serve God by serving man. And it doesn't change. The occupation can change, but the service doesn't change. I mean, if I look at my son Chris, he was primarily a loving person. And then I look at his little friend, and he was too, but he loved computers. And he loved making computers available for people, and he was rewarded for that. His purpose was the same thing, just a different vehicle, computers. Ours is chiropractic. Same thing. And if I was in a car business, it would be the same thing. I would love my cars. I would sell you the love of my cars. And, instead of selling you the mechanics of the car, I wouldn't do that. I would sell you the love of the car. And I would sell a lot of cars. And that's the same way with chiropractic. When we would share with them what chiropractic was, we would share actually our love for it. And that's one thing I have, is a passion for chiropractic, for what I do. And that shows. So we always had big crowds. That's how you get big crowds. How does a person get a big practice? Well, you have to educate, but you have to also show that you have some kind of special feeling, some passion for what you do, and people want that. They don't want what you don't want. They want what you don't want to give up, or you know what I mean? It's like buying a house. If you say, well, this is a lousy house, I want to sell it, nobody will buy it. But if you can have that same house and love the house, everybody will come and it'll sell. Anything. And Sid talks about that. It's pretty interesting. He talked about how he was the #1 pots and pans for Peerless Pots and Pans. When he was showing this woman, do you know the story? Well, he was down on his knees to show this woman. It was an old rundown house, and the guy was drunk in the front room, and the mother and the daughter were there, and they were, poor people. And he picked up the pot, a little red pot, and held it, and he knelt down, and when he did, the sole of his shoe ripped off. So he put all of himself into that pot, and he actually fell in love with the pot. And they previously said they didn't want any, and they said, can I have that? Can I have that set? And he said yes. And he sold them when they said they didn't want it. Then he got to the point where he would sit in a booth in a restaurant, and they would have a separate booths over here, booths here, but like a little wall there. And he'd set the pots up on top of the wall, and people would come by, and he'd just sit there and love his pots. And people would come by and want them. They'd say, what? He'd say, well, this is this, it costs so much. And he became the #1 guy, Not from a selling technique, from a loving technique. That's how you build a big business of any kind. What business can you not build if you really love what you're doing? And just like your thing here. If you're really in love with this thing, it'll work. If it's just something you're doing, it's not necessarily going to work.
I love what you're saying about how powerful love is, and it made me think of how could that same love, it transforms a sales experience of any kind. How does it transform a person?
You mean making that person better? Well, because if you recognize love, and if you recognize what love does, first of all, you want to be better. Everybody innately wants to be better. Even crooks want to be better. better crooks, but they want to be better. But for a person to really understand the love he has for his people makes your life completely different. It's not like a business anymore. It's like here's a gift for you. This is what I want to do for you. And then it becomes where you get into when you really love. It's like a mother. A mother will give her life up in a heartbeat for her child. And when you can have that kind of love, that tremendous love for another person or thing, for that matter, it becomes it's a blessing, I think, for everybody involved. But if you can truly love something or somebody or some place, it makes you a different person,
Would you be willing to just say what you think a love bomb is by saying the word love bomb?
You want me to say what a love bomb is?
Yeah.
By saying the word love bomb?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I don't know. I suppose love bomb is going about and expressing that which you care about the most, and whatever that may be, and it creates a feeling of tenderness and caring and empathy and beauty, all combined. I think that's what a love bomb is.
Could that transform people?
It does transform people. It definitely does. This love is really a big thing,